Recently, Cheyenne Bryan sparked debate after stating on Joe Budden's podcast that she is not a licensed therapist and has no interest in becoming licensed. A lot of people are now asking, what does it actually take to become a therapist? I have Gladys here with me, and she is a licensed therapist. Gladys, let's start this discussion.
Hi, Lola. Thank you for bringing up this discussion. So, becoming a licensed therapist is a long and highly regulated process. Most therapists earn their undergraduate degree in psychology, counseling, social work, or another related field. After that, they complete a master's degree program, which includes intensive clinical training and academic study. But even after graduation, the journey is not over. Therapists must complete thousands of supervision hours that is supervised by a state approved licensed supervisor, which is something that's very important. Many therapists actually pay for that supervision while working towards their license. Then they must pass a state exam and follow strict ethical guidelines throughout their career. Let me flip that a little bit. So you have to pass your licensure exam and then apply to the state to become an associate before you can then start those supervision hours. Speaking from my own experience, none of this journey was easy. It was hard. It was definitely difficult because when you're in school, you have to get some intern hours. The school that I went to, I had to get 700 intern hours, and generally those intern hours are not paid because you're in school. Now, upon graduation and taking my licensure exam, I passed on the first try, and some people do not have that experience. They do not pass that exam on the first try. If I remember correctly, it was about, at the time, it was about like $600 just for the exam, but I did pay for an extra credential to come along with it. And then finding a supervisor is a whole other deal because there's no cap on how much a supervisor can charge. So I can remember when I was doing my research and looking for a supervisor, there were supervisors that were charging upwards of $500 because the idea is once you become an associate, the rules state that you have to have some supervision hours and you have to have supervision hours weekly. And so you have to have 1 hour a week with your supervisor. So all of those things, it takes money, it takes time, it takes a lot of energy to get all of these things done. And then you're looking for a place where you will get your supervision hours. So now, once you've graduated and you're getting those licensure hours for the state, people are more willing to pay you. And so you can work in a psychiatric hospital, you can work in clinics that provide mental health care. You can work for like your local mental health authority. Those are usually the easier places to get into as an associate, or like I said, a psychiatric hospital. Um, I do recommend people trying to get into a psychiatric hospital because they're open 24 hours a day. Your clients that you're going to see are inpatient. And so, they're always there, you're always there, and you can get your hours a lot faster. But this process is intensive and it requires a lot of strength, it requires dedication, and a lot of things come along with it, the emotional side of it, the financial side of it, just learning about your ethics, learning about what your particular state requires, because each state requires something different. I know the counseling compact that is happening right now is trying to get it to where a licensed therapist, like once you become fully licensed, you can take your license anywhere, you can move to any state and start practicing. But the compact is, I mean, so it requires each state to approve it. And I'm in the state of Texas, and our legislature has not approved us for the compact. And our legislature doesn't meet every year, it meets every 2 years. So we're going to have to wait to see if that'll come back around and Texas will join the counseling compact. So as you can see, there's a lot involved in becoming a licensed therapist.
I can definitely see that. The tight regulations and the requirements are spelled out, so no one can truly say they don't understand the importance of this journey. Is the conversation we are about to have is bigger than just one individual?
Absolutely. So the conversation is not really about one person, it is about transparency, it's about ethics, it's about how professional titles are represented to the public. Many people in the influencer space use titles that can create confusion. Some individuals hold honorary doctorates, while others are, beautifully recognize that they have a certain kind of impact on the general, population. Their impact and accomplishments are honorary, and they do recognize that. They do say that up front, and that is something that is important to distinguish whether you've earned an honorary doctorate degree or you have earned a professional clinical license.
Can you explain the difference for listeners?
Of course, so an honorary doctorate is symbolic of recognition. It is not the same as an earned PhD, PsyD, ED, EDW, DSW, or MD. It is not the same thing as a licensed professional counselor and MSW, LMSW, or one of those credentials. Um, is also not the same as clinical licensure, board certification, or regulated professional qualities. There are many, who respect the honorary doctorate recipients, such as, honoring them for their contributions to society and the things that they have done. But most honorary recipients do not use the title doctor in their professional healthcare, mental health, or academic setting in ways that could confuse the public about their qualifications. Most of them know that it is an honorary degree and proceed as they know, hey, I do not want to confuse the public, so I won't use doctor in my name.
So, the concern is not the honorary degree itself.
So, no, it's not the honorary degree itself. The concern is the ambiguity. So, when a person assumes someone has formal education, supervised clinical training, licensure, a professional oversight, this may actually create confusion in what their expectation is of this particular professional. In mental health, especially, that distinction matters because people are often vulnerable and are seeking guidance during a difficult time in their lives.
Some people say licensure only matters for insurance billing. What would you say to that?
So, licensure does allow therapists to bill insurance, but it also creates accountability, ethical standards, and continuing education requirements and protects both the therapist and the clients. Therapists are bound by professional ethical codes, like an ethical framework that protects confidentiality, personal boundaries, safety, and responsible care. There's a difference between being an online mental health personality and being a clinically trained licensed professional. Both may influence people, but only one operates with a regulated clinical framework designed to protect the public.
Final thoughts for the listeners?
So, title matters, transparency matters, and in mental health, clarity matters. The public deserves to know the difference between an honorary recognition, motivational coaching, online influence, and licensed clinical expertise. Education, ethics, supervision, and accountability are not an attack on success, they are to protect the people who are seeking help. So, as therapists, we typically say the therapeutic relationship is a sacred journey. It is a journey between the therapist, is a journey between the client. The person who is coming to seek help needs to be in a safe and secure relationship. And that secure relationship only comes about through the training that the therapist has. Yes, there are human beings involved in this process. The therapist is a human being, and the client is a human being, and the training that therapists go through allow us to be able to, how can I put this, navigate that fine line of being able to reach our client and also create a safe environment for them. And so just remember that it is a sacred journey. When you decide to embark on that journey, I would encourage you to look in areas where you know that the therapist is going to be licensed, so not just somebody that is an influencer online. I always talk about Psychology Today being a platform that you can go and you can put in your zip code and you'll be able to find a therapist in your area. Psychology Today actually verifies licensure. Like I have a page on Psychology Today and I had not updated it since I renewed my license. And so they sent me a message saying, hey, your licensure is out of compliance. And so I had to go back on Psychology Today and put in the new date of expiration for my license because our licenses do expire. You do have to renew your license and you have to show and prove that you've done a certain amount of CEUs, so continuing education hours, in order to renew your license. And you have to pass the jurisprudence exam. So there are some things that keep us intact, that keep our mind sharp when we are in the counseling field and we have pursued licensure and we're planning to maintain our license. So Lola, I think one of the things that we can talk about in one of our next segments is what that therapeutic relationship looks like. So let's talk a little bit and discuss how we will navigate that, and because I'd like our listeners to hear, what does that therapeutic relationship is like when you begin that therapeutic process. So let's talk a little bit about that. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Gladys, I think that is a wonderful idea. Let's do it. Thank you all for listening. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment and let us know that you have been listening. Remember, all of our discussions are for educational purposes only.